Welcome back, good people of a great nation. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the second segment of this discussion, segment of This Morning on Night TV. We call this edition Development Focus with Jide Ojo on ITV. If you have been following discussions around if you've been following development in the polity since the beginning of this year, actually since about middle of last year, there have been defections and cross-carpeting of political juggernauts across the aisle, both at the National and State Assembly. And this has been a recurring decimal ahead of every general election. You see politicians moving from one political party to the other, en masse. But while it's free for people to defect, the Constitution in Section 68, subsection 1G, has laid down condition precedent that you, if you are an elected member of parliament, whether at this federal or state level, condition precedent that must be met before you can defect. Unfortunately, that section is silent on the executive, what condition precedent have to be met for someone in the executive branch, or maybe holding executive position like president, governor, local government chairperson. What are the condition precedent for them to defect? But as individual, if you are not holding any political office, you can join APC in the morning, move over to PDP in the afternoon, and dine with APGA in the night. You are free. But I've brought an academic, a sound academic, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, to come and break this down for us. What are the implications of this defection from one party to the other, particularly in this context, those who are holding elective offices? What are the implications ahead of 2023? Is there a legal sense, a legal backing to this, or is it a moral issue? Does politics and morality go together? All of this you hear from my August guest in June, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Prof is the head of Department of Mass Communication at Bayes University here in Abuja. You are welcome, sir.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So tell our viewers a bit more about yourself. I may not have done justice to introducing you.
Well, I think you've said it all. I am a lecturer at Bayes University, head of Department of Mass Communication. And before then, I was a World Bank consultant on the platform of the Economic Reform and Governance Project at the Bureau of Public Procurement. And before then as well, I was a journalist with the Guardian newspaper. Yeah.
So you're welcome to your forte. So, Prof, I'm taking you out of mass comm, but you are doing mass comm.
That's right.
Because this is a mass communication platform. Yeah. So you are communicating the public. But I'm not going to be picking your brain about academics. Yeah. About academia, rather. Let's talk about politics now. Yeah. What's your take? At the last count, we've had in the last 1 year, 4 governors have defected from the parties that brought them to power, moved to opposing parties, starting with Governor of Edo State, that's Governor Godwin Obaseki. In June last year, he moved from APC to PDP. And PDP applauded. They were so excited. They said, this is democracy at work. Only for them to start getting the bashing. Then we have Governor Dave Umahi from Ebonyi moving to APC, Governor Ben Ayade of Cross River moving to APC. Now yesterday, Governor Bello Matawalle of Zamfara has joined the fray. That is even not talking of senators and House of Reps members. Recall that last week, Senator Nwoboshi of Delta State crossed over, and even Senator Elijah Abo, David Mark's daughter moved from APGA to APC. Several of them like that. Like it's raining against PDP now. What's your take? Is this okay? Is it good for our democracy?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jide, for that very robust introduction. But I think we need to, first of all, situate it within a background, and it's only on that basis that I think we can be fair to the process. Our political process, our political experience is still maturing, it's still evolving, and we can't say our democracy and our institutions, institutions that support our democracy have really grown. They are also still growing. So because of that, we can say there's no soul to our democracy. Everything is just centering around interest, Interests have remained permanent, and every other thing are actually variables, that help to cushion or realize those interests. So political parties in our system for now are still contraptions, special purpose vehicles meant to help politicians to actualize their ambition to be in government. And being in government is just driven again largely, by the culture of prebendalism, the culture of material acquisition, the culture of self-aggrandizement, as against people-centric disposition. So because of that, there's no soul, there's no philosophy, principles, virtues, and values are limited. I believe that maybe with time, when we grow to a certain level, these other things, these other experiences we're talking about, principles, philosophies, virtues, and value, will come into our political system. Then we'll rather be driven by ideology rather than primordial interest, which still lies supreme or reigns supreme in the determination of political contestation. For now, we are not there yet, but I'm very optimistic that with time, the content of our democracy will grow. We are 22 years in democracy, yes. In terms of longevity, this is the best we have done since post-independence period. So now that we're celebrating that we have stayed over 2 decades in our democratic experience, that is the physical aspect. The other aspect is for us to be concerned about growing the content. And one aspect of growing the content is to improve on the character of politicians. For now, it is still self-acquisitive. And that's why they don't bother. They justify their movement with ease. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a hoot. Nobody cares whose ox is God. And it doesn't matter what you say or what critics say. They are driven by their own interest. We want to become governor, want to become president, want to become vice president, senator. Which vehicle will take me there fast? That's the primary determinant, which is not supposed to be so. But I believe that maybe with time, we will get out of this. But it is what it is now. And ahead of 2023, we should expect that more of these deflections will continue to happen. Because the motive is just the same thing. Let me grab power, largely for the sake of power, not necessarily to serve the people, not necessarily, to project an ideology. Because if you look at the parties, for instance, every party constitution, ideology, philosophy is a parody of another party. It has continued over the years. What happens is just the insignia or the flag, the logo. Every other thing is largely the same thing. And even on that, they are also essentially on paper in terms of implementation, in terms of execution. You can actually see anything in evidence. So that's our experience for now. And of course, sometimes even when they belong to these different parties, they integrate, they are joined, they are bonded by some kind of interest that would rather shock you. You'd be wondering then, what is the ideology of a party? APC, for instance, is a progressive party, maybe theoretically a little to the left of the center, even if that's theoretically, mark my word. The other one is a little to the right of the center. But to what extent will you say that the philosophies that undergird these divisions, are adhered to? Largely, you will say that it's not necessarily in evidence.
So, Prof, you are validating the cliche that in politics there is no permanent enmity or friendship. Your only interest is permanent. And people have said that it's about food is ready politics that we have.
It's not supposed to be so, really. But that's our experience. And I'm just trying to put it in context, to just explain what we're seeing. It's not ideal. It's not an ideal situation. We see a better manifestation in other climes. Our democracy, presidential democracy.
I mean, you saw President Joe Biden stayed 34 years in the Senate of U.S.
That's
and
right.
he belongs to the Democratic Party. You
and
know, when you are a D, you are a D. When you are hard, you are hard.
That's right.
But here, you see the blunt line. The so-called APC chieftains of today were PDP chieftains of yesterday. And you know the shocking thing, Prof, was that while all of this was happening in the last 16 years in the first 16 years of PDP, they relish it. You recall how the poaching was done to weaken the opposition. Even party chairmen, other party chairmen were poached to join under the so-called Government of National Unity. If you recall, AD chairman Abdul Kadri, Alhaji Abdul Kadri, was poached to join PDP at some point. Even Ume Ezeoke, the Second Republic House of Rep Speaker, at some point also went into Government of National Unity as a chairman of ANPP.
Absolutely.
So now PDP is crying foul. They said they will not take it easy with Matawale, that they are going to wrestle and collect their mandate. He cannot trade with it. But when Governor Obaseki joined from APC to PDP, they welcome him with open arms.
Yeah, and
is that not double standard?
Well, you can even expect something more than double standard amongst them, because it's just about interest. It's about interest. Being on the defensive, when you're losing, and being on the offensive where you think you can make a gain, or where you think you are gaining. That's what it is for now. But we have to really, again, understand that we are growing. I'll keep repeating that word. And I have never experienced the prevalence of these in a mature democracy like the United States, even if they have their own downsides. But I've seen semblance of it in the wake of the argument towards Brexit, the other day. But even at that, the cross-carpeting, wherein that manifests, as we are seeing it here now. But something comes to my mind again when you were making your remark. I see the way people turn themselves into fan around club sites, European club sites, but in this country. Most people that I've seen, if you do a research, this is not empirical anyway, but it's something that you can really put your hands to. You will see that hardly will you see somebody changing from Arsenal to a Chelsea easily. Changing from Manchester United to Manchester City.
You hear they say Gunners for life.
Yes.
So Chelsea for life.
It's an ideological construction, and it evolves. So I believe that if it can happen, on an entertainment level, like sports. Why not politics? But because our politics is largely new, no matter what we say about it, 22 years is still very, very young. Like you may say that, 22 years is a lot of. If you compare it to a child who is growing, and you expect, if you compare it using adult suffrage age, you say 22 is matured, but not in a democratic system, in a complex, evolving entity like Nigeria that is fragile and vulnerable, where the major source of income, the major source of sudden wealth, is through government.
It's
politics and government,
So, Prof, the implications. Let's look at the implications. You have said that we are running politics without soul. It's a special purpose vehicles to get you to where you need to go. Now, we are gravitating towards a one-party state, the kind of which we experienced in 16 years of PDP. Before 2013, when APC came on stream, it used to be PDP and others. It was just like that. It was multi-party democracy de jure. De jure by law. It was multi-party. But the factor was one-party state from 1999 to 2015. Now, are we not gradually getting back to that one-party state? And what are the implications of gravitating towards a one-party state?
Well, we know across the world that one-party state is an anathema to freedom, to the expansion of thoughts, and to integration and involvement of a wide range of people. And that's why democracy is often about representation, which we have tried to practice in our post-military years. So one-party states sometimes can bring about development, like we've seen in Russia, in China. But again, what about happiness? What about freedom? What about individual fulfillment and prosperity is often absent in such arrangements. In our own case, we have made that declaration that we want a multi-party democracy, and like you said, on paper it is so, but in practice, it is far from it. Well, it is going to be something that we're going to live with, for some time, except we'll reshape the narrative through some conscious creation of awareness, creation of sensitization, where leaders, including yourself and myself, really, because we're all leaders in our own right. And that's why most of the time when we don't talk about leaders, we shouldn't just blame our political leaders.
Let's see whether we can bring this conversation to the people. Yeah. The number to call is 0809-987-1989. Hello?
Hi.
Hello, what's your name and where are you calling from? Where are you calling from? Please, we only need serious caller. Please, this is not a circus show. If you don't have anything to say, please don't call us. Sorry, Prof. I was just thinking the phones were ringing and we thought we could take one or two calls. But land on your thoughts, sir.
Yeah. I was saying that democracy is about representation, and representation is key for integration and involvement, especially in a large, expansive country like our own. So that everybody will have a sense of belonging, consequent upon the permanence of longing. And that's why we design our democracy after the American presidential system, because ordinarily we regard America as a bastion of democracy, even if it is not the best. The best are largely in the Nordic Scandinavian countries. But of course, we see that the democracy is vibrant and robust and is workable and is bringing about progress.
You just refer to the Nordic. Sweden just sacked its prime minister after a vote of no confidence.
Yeah, so that's why most times they are seen as the best epitome of democracy. But we are ours is patterned after America, even if we're not completely American in the operation.
Quasi.
Yeah, sort of. But again, it is workable irrespective of the cost, because it gives us a level of freedom. We are multi-ethnic, about 500 ethnic groups, expansive land, different peoples, and there can actually be beauty in difference, because there's no system in the world that is completely homogeneous, neither is there anyone that is completely heterogeneous. What matters is the management of those systems, the management of those systems. Even in countries where the language and cultures are monolithic, you still find some levels of differentiation, because differentiation is not only at the level of ethnicity or religion. It can also be at some other secular levels, maybe income group, maybe age group, maybe gender, etc., etc. And those things can also be problematic when it comes to how you pander to their interest, or how you try to attend to their needs and aspirations.
Let me pause it. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, what's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Prince Adewale. That's from Maitama.
Okay, Prince Adewale from Maitama. What's your question, sir?
Yeah, my question is that when you talk about politicians and the man there, Prof, I welcome him with all what he's saying there. But at the end of the day, if you cannot tackle them from the grassroots, that is from their manifesto, constitution, and agenda, to sign them into law from the grassroots, we cannot get any result. We should bring the National Assembly, then the lawyer, down to the grassroots for evidence and agreement, so that promise and faith will be wiped off. We have the law, but we cannot maintain it. So the politicians, they will adjust the system, and at the end of the day, it's still the same APC and PDP, Chelsea and Man U. So what you are saying there, you are very 100% correct. So we go nowhere without signing them into law from day one, from that 774 local government.
Thank you, Prince.
So how do you want to tackle them?
Thank you, Prince.
Without signing them.
I don't know what you are signing. He's talking of signing in, social contracts about, the delivery on campaign promises. I want to guess, but Prof, let's quickly talk about this. Still on this defection, what implication does it have for 2023? You made a forecast, or is it you are being prophetic when you said this is just the beginning? It's going to continue until 2023, and then it will simmer for a bit. We have seen politicians moving from PDP to APC, back to PDP, back to APC. I give you an example of Yakubu Dogara, the former Speaker of House of Rep. He moved from PDP, joined APC, moved back from APC to PDP. Now he's back to APC, all in the space of how many years? 4 years. So what kind of credibility are we bringing to our politics if you cannot stand with a political ideology? If it's all about food is ready, if we all have to gravitate towards the ruling party, and that is one part of my question. The second part is, what does PDP need to halt this mass defection from it? Some have been calling for the head of Uche Secondus that he has to go. Maybe they need to sacrifice Uche Secondus like APC sacrificed Adams Oshiomhole. Will you recommend that to PDP? Two in one question.
Yeah, I think it's actually very difficult to ask to say what they can do, because what matters to them is interest. And APC, for instance, control the levers of states, and somebody who's controlling the levers of states in a situation where patronage reigns, where political patronage is prevalent. What can you say, when some things are being offered to you, when your prospect is seen as better, when you change camp, except you have principles, except you are very, very determined to say, no, I've grown above these interests, these acquisitive tendencies. Now I want to be ideological. But it's very, very difficult to find that in our climate, in a situation where you even need this material possession, to be able to influence your own people. So that's why we're seeing increasing absence of transparency, lack of accountability on the part of the politicians. Because if there's accountability, you've told your people that you belong to this group, this ideological group, rather, and again, in another breath, you just come and say, no, I'm changing to this one. So the people too lack the ability to question you, because you are probably dictating the tune. You are probably paying the piper, so you are likely to dictate the tune. So the fact that, in terms of material comfort, in terms of physical comfort, our people are still deprived, it is very easy for them to be manipulated. So those questions have to be answered in the longer run. And that's why we're saying that in terms of political growth, in the physical, we are growing, the institutions are there, even if they are not strong enough. The design is okay, presidential democracy, nothing wrong with it. But the problem is the soft aspect of it. The hard aspect of it, we are fine. But the soft aspect of it, reflected in ideology, in the attitude of the practitioners, we still have a lot of problem. And that's why we're concerned about sensitization, the creation of awareness, through instruments or institutions of government, like NOA, Ministry of Information, so that we can have some levels of ideological reorientation, for privileged nationhood above anything else. But for now, we're still falling short in those areas.
Okay, that would be I wish I could go on, but I don't want them to roll montage on me because our time is actually up. But I want to thank you very immensely, my Oga, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, Head of Department of Mass Communication at Base University. If you have enjoyed this edition, please do join us next Wednesday when a fresh edition shall be up. This program is up for sponsorship and advert placement. If you find it worthy, you can do business with us, and we'll welcome your patronage. Do enjoy the rest of your day. My name is J.D. Ojo. I'm the anchor of this segment of This Morning on ITV. We call it Development Focus with Jide Ojo on ITV. Every Wednesday, it comes to your viewing pleasure. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.